Hey everybody, it's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 16 4 key game picks. Before we get into week number 16, what can I say about what happened in week number 15? There's a lot to really absorb from what happened in week 15. When I look at a couple things here, obviously, if you look at the text on the fly, there's your current updated standings in both the AFC and NFC number 1 through 7 seeds. And a couple of things have changed. I mean, you look at what happened in week number 15, obviously, the Bengals coming back from about a 14-point deficit to beat the Vikings. The Steelers and the Broncos getting hammered by the Colts and the Lions. And then in the Sunday games, you had the Cowboys just basically getting punched in the face to the Bills. Obviously, the Bills are keeping their playoff hopes alive. Green Bay Packers losing to the Buccaneers. They took a huge hit. The Packers took a huge hit on their playoff hopes. Obviously, a lot of teams in the NFC are fighting for that number 7 seed. And I think the bigger story, I don't know what might be the biggest story what happened in week 15, whether if it was the Cowboys getting whooped or the defending NFC champion Eagles basically just collapsing against the Seahawks. It is very difficult to say which are the bigger stories that what happened over week 15. But I think to me, the bigger story to me really is the Baltimore Ravens. Besides beating a beatdown on the Jaguars, but the way that Lamar Jackson is just going unbelievable in his passing, especially one pass he threw that is kind of like a Patrick Mahomes type of pass. It's really interesting to see in the AFC if the Ravens can continue that number 1 seed. Currently, right now, they're still in that position ahead of the Dolphins and the Chiefs. The Chiefs getting back on track against the Patriots. I mean, it does help them. But clearly, the Baltimore Ravens, for the time being right now, is the class of the AFC. They're playing good football, and they're playing very hot at the right time. And it's tough I don't know if anybody in the AFC is going to be able to stop them. Unless if they stop themselves. It's tough to say. They did lose another player, one of their running backs, to season-ending injury. So now you got to wonder if there's some vulnerability on that football team. Tough to really say. And you look at the NFC, obviously the 49ers are still the class of the NFC. And it's really tough to say how this is going to play out for this football team as well, barring any injuries. But to me, the 49ers look like they're the class of the NFC, the way it's going right now. Trying to keep my thoughts short and sweet. Obviously, if you look at the text on the fly, those are your current up-to-date playoff standings. And otherwise, I'm trying to get this video done ASAP because obviously the holidays are coming, and I don't want to spend too much time on this video. I know a lot of people are probably going to be a lot of you are going to be traveling, or who knows where you're going to be for the holidays. And going into week number 16, good slate of football games this week and a lot of playoff implications and playoff positioning. And these are the games I'm going to talk about that I personally felt probably deserves more attention at the moment. But I don't know. You be the judge of what I talk about here in these games. All right, let's begin with key game number 1, and that is the Thursday night game, and that is the Saints versus the Rams. The Rams are a 4-point favorite. Probably will be 3.5, maybe 3 points. Derek Carr for the Saints in a big beatdown over the Giants. He went 23 of 28, 218 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Possibly his best game of the season. Especially, they really held the Giants at bay in that game. Matthew Stafford for the Rams, 25 of 33, 258 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. They had the Commanders beat, but then for some reason late in the fourth quarter, that Rams defense almost had a comeback for the Commanders. So something is off about the Rams defense. The game shouldn't have been close, but yet the Rams only won by 8 points. And it bears to mind when I look at this game coming up on Thursday night. Obviously, the Saints are trying to keep any slim hope of their playoffs alive because they're also fighting for the division lead in the NFC South. The Rams, however, they're trying to cling to that last playoff spot. I look at this football game here. The Saints offense finally starting to click, and their defenses did play pretty well against the Giants. And you got to wonder if that Rams defense has you got to wonder if the Rams defense has a bigger vulnerability, whether the pass rush or trying to run the ball. It's actually a tough football game, to be quite honest with you, who wins this game here. Because the Rams are probably going to be more in... I think that the Saints will be more in desperate mode than the Rams will be. But I look at the way that the Rams wide receivers... I mean, look, you got Kupp, and... the Rams have weapons. And I don't know if the Saints are going to be... if they're going to be able to double team. And they're going to be... their secondary is going to be able to double team. I look at this football game, it's a tough pick. But I'm going to pick the Rams here. I think the Rams are starting to click as much as the Saints are. But given Matthew Stafford and his experience, and given he's got Cooper Kupp at wide receiver, obviously their running game is kind of a struggle. That's one thing the Saints do have an advantage on. But the Saints really don't play well on the road. That's one thing. And obviously I can see the Rams barely winning in this football game. The Rams are favored by 4, but I don't know if I want to. I don't know if I want to take the points here on this one here, because the Rams have been getting into very close football games, and obviously a couple weeks losing to the Ravens didn't help their cause. I'm going to pick the Rams here. I think the Rams are going to click in this football game. It should be a good one on Thursday night, but I just think the Rams will win this game. It's a tough call on this one here. I like the Rams in this one here to keep hanging on to that 7th seed, because they hold some tiebreakers over Seattle and the Saints. I like the Rams in this one here. I think the Rams will beat the Saints here. I'll take the Rams -4, the Rams over the Saints. Key game number 2. A showdown in the NFC North. It is the Lions versus the Vikings. The Lions are a slight 3-point favorite in this one here, and I would say that's about right. Jared Goff was 24 of 34, 278 yards, 5 touchdowns, and no interceptions. No question, this was probably his best game of the season. The Vikings, surprisingly, Nick Mullins, 26 of 33, 303 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he was picked off twice against the Bengals. This is do or die time now for the Minnesota Vikings. They're still 2 games back of the NFC North, but I don't think that kind of is in reach for them, as much as they're trying to cling on to that one of the playoff spots they currently hold at the moment. The Vikings the Vikings secondary is just as vulnerable as the Lions secondary. Both teams' defenses, they're about evenly matched, and it wouldn't surprise me if this somehow becomes a shootout in this game. Because I don't know if -3 is the right number there, because for some reason both teams' defenses aren't that good. But when I think about talent on both of these two football teams, obviously Jeffords for the Vikings, he's still trying to get back into a groove. He didn't play all that well against the Bengals last week. He's still dealing with some injuries. For the Lions here, look, the Lions, in terms of talent-wise, they have more of the advantage. They do have a running game with the trio of Montgomery and Gibbs. Jared Goff looks like he's starting to click, and look, he's got Laporta with the rookie tight end that they have. I mean, to me, the talent is better on the Lions side than it is the Vikings here. And obviously for the Lions, if they win this game, they will wrap up the NFC North division. And I'm going to pick the Lions here. I think they wrap up the NFC North division. I think it's important for them to wrap up their playoff spot right now, even if they clinch just the playoff berth. But I think talent-wise, the Lions have the better team in this one here. But it wouldn't surprise me if this is a back-and-forth game. I'm going to pick the Lions over the Vikings here at -3. It's a tough call on that -3. Because really, both defenses for both these two teams aren't that great. But the Lions do have the better team in this game. I like the Lions here. I'm picking the Lions over the Vikings. Key game number 3. The Cowboys versus the Dolphins. The Dolphins are a slight 1-point favorite in this one here. And it probably wouldn't surprise me if this goes to pick'em status. Dak Prescott, and basically getting whooped against the Bills, was 21 of 34, 134 yards, no touchdowns, but 1 interception. I mean, the Cowboys only scored 10 points, and really was their running game that scored the touchdown in that game versus the Bills. Now, the Dolphins, they shut out the Jets last week, obviously trying to hang on to the division, the AFC East division. Tua was 21 of 24, 224 yards, 1 touchdown, and no interceptions. Really the running game was one of the keys in that game for the Dolphins. this is a very tough game to pick here. Even though despite the issues that the Cowboys have on the road, if there's ever a road game that the Cowboys desperately need and any sort of way to make a statement, it's this game right here. There's just something about the Dolphins that I don't trust. And obviously, they're still missing Hill. He wasn't really that much of a factor not being in the game against the Jets because the Jets didn't even score any points. But obviously, Hill is going to be desperately needed in this football game here. And the Cowboys coming in, they did have some injuries against the Bills last week. And some of their players are questionable in this game. Now, a lot of people would say that, majority might pick the Dolphins this one here. I think I'm going to go the other way. The Cowboys defense, they may have fallen asleep or had lots of troubles against the Bills. But for some reason, there's just something about the Dolphins I just don't trust. And that is, I think it's more the way that Tula's been playing these last few games. Tula really had to make a statement against the Jets. But the Jets coming in, they were already eliminated. And obviously for the Dolphins, this is a much tougher game. Cowboys defense is still pretty good. And it's going to have to really come down to Tula and really making some big plays and really utilizing Tyreek Hill if he does play in this game, which I don't have any word yet as of the time of this video if he is going to be starting in this game. More likely he will. But check any NFL news if you're a Dolphins fan to see if Tyreek Hill will play, but I think he will. And he's really badly needed for this game against the Cowboys. But I'm actually going to go the other way here. I think the Cowboys finally will get probably one of the most important road wins of the season. Like I said, there's something about that Dolphins team that without Tyreek Hill, they're just an average. Their offense isn't all that great. Because really, Hill has made a huge difference for Tula. But I don't know how healthy Hill's going to be, and that's going to be a factor for them. The Cowboys, I'm going to pick them. I think the Cowboys finally get one monkey off their back from any road games they've been playing all season. And obviously, they want to make sure they wrap up the NFC East going into Week 17. I think to me the Cowboys obviously they need a road win here. And I think they're going to get it against the Dolphins because there's something about the Dolphins the Dolphins right now, obviously they should be playing more desperate. Because they know that the Bills are playing they're playing well at the right time and could still steal the AFC East division away from them. But I think to me, the Cowboys, obviously they want to make a statement of their own on the road. And I could see it in this football game because this game is on Christmas. No, it's actually on Sunday, I should say. Sunday, not Christmas Eve, not Christmas. I like the Cowboys in this one here. I think the Cowboys will win in this game at +1. I'm going to pick the Cowboys here. It's going to be a close game. It's a tough one here. I'm going to pick the Cowboys over the Dolphins. And finally, key game number 4. It is the Ravens versus the 49ers. The 49ers are a 5-point favorite in this one here, and it wouldn't surprise me if that number goes even lower. The battle of number 1 seeds right here. Obviously, this game of importance to their respect in both of these two teams in the AFC and the NFC in terms of the number 1 seed. Lamar Jackson was 14 of 24, 171 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. Brock Purdy for the 49ers was 16 of 25, 242 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no interceptions. I think the key in this football game here, obviously if I talk about the 49ers here, it's going to be the defense. Their defense is going to have to really get to Lamar Jackson. If there's something that Lamar Jackson hasn't faced all year, and that's a good defense. But the running game now is going to be a huge question. I wonder if Lamar Jackson is going to have to do a little bit more in this game now that the running game has taken a huge hit with one of their players now out for the season. That question mark now is raising in a lot of head scratching now if they can develop a running game. Now, obviously, Lamar Jackson is mobile. He can run himself. But that 49er defense has been good all season. Even though despite some hiccups they had earlier in the season, the 49ers are a much better team. And that's going to be something that Lamar Jackson is going to have to really find a way to break through that defense or whatever vulnerability that the 49ers defense has. Because going into this game, most of the 49ers are healthy right now, and obviously they don't have any injury issues going into this game. And I would say this will be a very close game. I don't think this game for either side is going to be a blowout. Because this is a very big one here for both these two teams. Obviously, they're trying to hang on to their respective number 1 seeds. But I'm going to pick the 49ers here. I think that Lamar Jackson is going to have a hard time against that 49er defense. And obviously, with no help in the run game, now you got to wonder if the Ravens now if supposedly they look a little bit more unstoppable and more complete. But without the running game now for the Ravens, you got to wonder now if that's going to be if they're now becoming more vulnerable going into the postseason. I think I think that Lamar Jackson's going to have a hard time against this 49er defense, but I can see this being a close game, no question. I can see this game going down to a field goal. I think the 49ers will hang on and beat the Ravens in this one here. It's a tough pick here, but I'm going to pick the 49ers here in this one here. I think the 49ers will beat the Ravens. It's going to be a very tight ball game on Christmas night, and that's my pick in this one here. I think the 49ers defense will get to Lamar Jackson. I think it should be a good one Monday night. But I think the 49ers are much more complete team than the Ravens are. But it's going to be a very tight ball game here. I'm going to pick the 49ers here, barely beating the Ravens here. All right, everybody, that wraps up my 4 key game picks for week number 16. Please check the description below for all of my week 16 picks. I want to wish you guys all a Merry Christmas, and I'll talk to you guys next week when I make my picks for week number 17. Take care and enjoy your NFL weekend.